I spent my whole career in the service industry, and most of it intoxicated. But fortunately, I was able to make it out and put a full-on reset in my life, even after the age of 40. In this video, I'm gonna reveal how my new journey began. And if you think that your life is over and that you can't change, I can tell you that you're wrong. If I can do it, you can too. Here's how I did it. I want to start out by saying that change isn't easy, especially because the habits that we perform on a daily basis make up who we are. We're all inherently wired to win. If we want to get what we want to get, we get it, good or bad. If you've ever been addicted to anything in your life, you know it is not impossible to get what you want. Imagine if we were able to put forth that effort towards what we need. It's not a pretty road, and if it was, everybody would take it. But the destination is more beautiful than you can imagine. You can call it a resurgence, you can call it rehabilitation, you can call it a reset. But ultimately, the goal is to peel back all the layers like an onion and reveal who you are truly inside. And become that person that you were always meant to be and finding yourself. My challenge number one in this journey, let's call it discipline. There is no easy way. Right before I started realizing that I needed a reset, I was going to work on a daily, head down, doing my thing, going home, having some beers, rinse and repeat. Then the pandemic happened, and a lot of people were scared. A lot of people were worried. It was a really fearful time. You were there. During this time, being part of the service industry, most of the people that I worked with, they resorted to consuming alcohol and partying, and you have free time, you hung out, and a lot of people overdid it. I don't really know anybody who died from the pandemic, but I do know people who died from alcohol poisoning during the pandemic. And that hit me hard because I drink the same as everybody else that was my age. And although I was very depressed and I did believe that maybe I was gonna die before I turned 50, like life was over, which is really a terrible mindset to be in now that I'm looking at it in retrospect. But that's really where I was. I thought that life was just about to be over. I pretty much had everything locked, done. This is what I am. This is what I did. This is my career. Retirement was death to me. Like, I'll just die. I'll work until I'm dead. That's how I used to think. And one day, someone very close to me passed away from alcohol. That's when I recognized that I needed to change. I needed to switch something up. And so I did a lot of research on YouTube. I looked up fasting to see how healthy that would be. Because for one, I ran out of money. I didn't have any money. So what I did is I stopped drinking for 3 days. And I got out of town with some people. While I was out of town, I just kind of laid low, slept a lot. And then when I got back, I decided to fast for 3 days, which was an ultimate, like, really hard. And I don't know if I recommend it for anybody just starting out, unless you have that willpower. It was kind of like part of me knowing that I needed to change, knowing that I need to put myself through something extremely difficult to be able to prove to myself that I was capable of changing. By the third day, like, seriously, everything got loose in my body, and it was almost like a full-on detox. Like, I had to run away to the restroom. My body was like, hey, just getting everything out. And after everything was out of me and I spent those 3 days not eating, I came back to food with a new discipline on what I was gonna eat. So for 3 months, I ate once a day between the hours of 12 and 4. And I could eat whatever I wanted. The dramatic weight loss was scary looking at it in retrospect, because I went from over like 200 pounds to all the way down to my high school weight at like 145. And when I look back at pictures from July to September, the difference is like, you would have thought I was sick. I feel like a lot of the weight that I lost was from my organs being inflamed from all the alcohol I drank, because I drank alcohol for like 20 years regularly on a regimen. I honestly never saw myself not drinking alcohol. I never saw myself not smoking cigarettes. It wasn't something that I was like, I identified as, which is something that became really important later on. Once I lost the weight, I became motivated, and I went headfirst into self-help videos all over YouTube. One of the things that's funny about when you're self-disciplining yourself is everybody around you is going to give you crap. because they're not willing to do these things themselves. Sometimes they will compliment you in a exaggerated way, which is almost like an insult in a way. You can take it as that. You will notice that people will treat you different, and you may not enjoy that. You may not like it. It may be uncomfortable, and it's also becomes one of your excuses. But if you remember the fact that it's not their life, it's your life, and you're taking care of it, and you're taking responsibility of your life. It doesn't matter what they think, because that's their problem, not yours. And if it's bad enough, you need to change your environment, and you just need to step away. It's crazy because I was watching this documentary of this teacher when he was talking about the children that he had in his classroom, and he noticed that when he took his kids out into nature, the biggest troublemakers, not only did they start behaving, but they became the leaders because they were in a different environment. Sometimes your environment matters about who you are and what you do. So you might look into changing your environment by creating self-discipline. You'll recognize the people who want to stick by you and the people who don't. And challenge number 2, sometimes your worst enemy is your own memory. You just need to let it go. One of the hardest things for me to accept was the fact that I did this to myself. Even though I could think of myself as a victim, but I was a victim of my own circumstances and my own choosing. And really, alcohol led me down this road. I went through a lot of painful things. Facing the reality of what I was avoiding was probably the hardest part. When I would get home from work and not be drunk, and I just had to deal with the day, that was tough, but it helped me mature really fast. And once I faced everything head on, all the things that I didn't forgive myself for, all the things that I didn't forgive other people for, all the things that I would be upset and angry about, really, ultimately, all of that stemmed from my own heart and the way that I thought about things. And I just needed to learn to really just let it go and be present. Don't worry about the past. Don't even worry about the future, because the future hasn't happened yet, and the past is just an anchor. So once I started letting everything go and living in the present, things became a lot easier and my anxiety started to go away. Challenge number 3, call this one good year can change your whole life. So I read this book, and I have it right here, Atomic Habits. And this became really interesting to me, how to start a new habit and how to break a bad habit. So to start a new habit, you want to make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. And to break the bad habit would be the invert to that, which would be make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it hard, and make it unsatisfying. And one of my big habits was alcohol and cigarettes. So really, I just had to make sure that I didn't buy it. And when I bought things, I would buy in replacement to it, I would buy healthy food. And I put myself on a specific diet where I took away sugars. I counted alcohol as a sugar, and that helped me stick to my self-discipline of the alcohol for the most part. I didn't quit drinking all the way, but gradually I started to break away from it. It became less necessary for me to have alcohol. I had still those excuses of, oh, well, the holidays are coming up. There's going to be a Christmas party. There's all these things. So I told myself, if you're going to use those excuses, then you can only drink on those holidays. And the last holiday that you're allowed to drink on is going to be New Year's. New Year's Eve, you can have a blast, do your thing, go. After that, the whole next year, you're not going to drink ever again. And so I was able to tell myself this back in October of that year. All the while, I was practicing this book, Atomic Habits, making it invisible, making it unattractive, making it hard, and making it unsatisfying. So on the last day, on New Year's Eve, when I decided that it was going to be the last day that I was going to drink, I went hard for like 2 hours. And I woke up the next morning ill. My insides are on fire. Super ill. Like, it's not something that I would recommend anybody to do, but it was how I disciplined myself. That made it extremely unattractive to me. So I was able to finish out the whole year without drinking at all. And it seemed like after 3 months, my identity as a drinker went away. I identified as a non-drinker. And after I identified as a non-drinker, and I also identified as a non-smoker, I couldn't see myself going back to that. Like, why would I ever want to feel hungover again? Why did I ever think that it was cool? It started to really get into my head that, wait a minute, this is unnecessary. I saved a bunch of money. Once I started saving money, then I had to learn money. So after 3 months of not drinking alcohol, I started investigating the stock market and getting into money. Challenge number 4, difficult roads lead to beautiful destinations. So Atomic Habits and Unf Yourself were two of my favorite books. That was Unf Yourself was for the mentality. The Psychology of Money became my new study. After the 3 months of not drinking, I had a lot of money. I never realized it, but I was spending thousands of dollars a month on a lifestyle of drinking and smoking cigarettes. And when I stopped, I was wondering, like, where did all this money come from? And then I didn't know what to do with it because I had been living like so far below my means to maintain my addiction to alcohol and cigarettes that when I took that away, I was pretty well used to living below my means. For a year, I decided to take that extra cushion of money and put it into savings and in the stock market. One of the things that I learned from reading this book, the mentality that I learned from reading this book, money is actually a tool to help you acquire more money and freedom. And I thought to myself, I don't want to work for somebody for the rest of my life. I want to be able to take control of everything on my own. Now, how am I going to be able to do that? My rent and bills was less than half of my annual income. So I took the rest of my annual income and pulled out 20% for myself that I could spend on food, clothes, whatever. The other 30% I put into savings. And this compounded very quickly. And by the time the year was over with, I had saved up almost $20,000 just from not drinking. And if I made any big purchases, I made sure that any of my big purchases were actually an investment towards my freedom. So if I was gonna buy something big, it would be a computer. It would be like this camera, anything that would help accelerate me into financial freedom. And then after I get there, then I'll be able to buy some of the things that I want. But because these things have become my hobby, they're actually the things that I want. And the last and final part, let's call it challenge number 5, the grind. It may go unnoticed, but the results won't. It won't happen overnight, but if you quit, it won't happen at all. One of the biggest things that I like to look at is where I am today and what I have around me and what I prayed for and what I asked God for a year ago. I actually have it. And it sometimes feels like everything is moving in slow motion and I'm not exactly where I want to be. But I look around, literally everything that I asked for last year, I have today. Day by day, week by week, year over year, if you're making progress every day, that compound is going to turn into something beautiful. So if you think that your life is over, that everything is done, just remember this. You can change at any second, at any time, at any day. All you need to do is make the decision that you want better for yourself and start giving better for yourself. You're not going to see the results right away, but you will. Just keep pushing, keep grinding, and make sure that you worry about yourself. Self-care, self-love, that all starts with self-discipline. And as long as you recognize that you need to teach yourself self-discipline, start disciplining yourself. I hope this helps somebody.